Hi, Angela.
Hiya. Hi there.
Okay.
Sarah's I spoke to Sarah this morning and her mum died.
Oh,
Oh,
Sorry to
Yeah,
hear that.
yeah.
um,
Um so she wasn't sure whether she'd be coming joining us or not. I think she felt that she would want to talk about it and then maybe it wouldn't be appropriate or she wouldn't have time beforehand and wouldn't really want to talk about it on video, if you see what I mean.
yep.
So she said she probably wouldn't join us.
Right.
Was this
But she's okay.
expected or
A little
un?
a bit. Well, I suppose when you get to a certain point, it could be at any point. Like I'm like that with my mum. It could be many years, or it could be next week. But it wasn't particularly expected.
Right. Hi,
Hmm.
But
Dima.
she's
so yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and start. And we decided to begin on page 118. This is the weekly Conversations with God book group, and we are reading Friendship with God. My name is Nanette Kennedy, and I am with Humanities Team and the Evolution Revolution. And Linda, I'll let you decide where you think it's best to start.
Okay, I'm actually going to start the paragraph prior on page 117 in my book. And this is Neil speaking. And that's why the master never sits in judgment of another person, place, or thing. The master knows he put it there. He's aware that at some level he created what he's experiencing. Yes. And that if he doesn't like what he's created, it's up to him to change it. Yes. And that condemnation has no part in that process. Indeed, that which you condemn, you keep in place. This is so very deep, very complex. Your understanding of it is perfect, just as it would be perfect if I did not understand it. Indeed. We are, all of us, exactly where it is perfect for us to be all the time. Exactly. Or you wouldn't be there. And we need nothing more for our evolution than exactly what we have and are experiencing right now. Once more, you are correct. And if we don't need anything, we don't have to trust God. That is what I have been saying, yes. And when we don't have to trust God, then we actually can. Because trust then means not having to have a particular result, but rather knowing that whatever results is for our highest good. You have brought it full circle. Bravo. The beauty of this is that not needing a particular result frees the subconscious mind from all the thoughts about why you can't have a particular result, which in turn opens the path to the particular result which was consciously intended. Yes, you are able to put more things on automatic. When you face a challenge, you automatically assume that things will go well. When you face some difficulty, you automatically know that it will be handled. When you encounter a problem, you automatically understand that it has already been solved for you automatically. You have created these outcomes subconsciously. Things start to happen automatically, seemingly without any effort on your part at all. Life starts working. Things start coming to you rather than you having to chase after them. This change occurs without conscious effort, just as negative, self-defeating, self-denying thoughts about who you really are and what you can do, be, and have were acquired subconsciously, so too they are released subconsciously. You don't know how or when you picked up such ideas, and you don't know how or when you dropped them. Life will simply and suddenly change for you. The time between your thinking a thought consciously and it being made manifest in your reality will begin to shrink. Ultimately, it will appear altogether. It will disappear altogether, and you will create results instantly. And actually, I'm not creating results at all, but I'm simply realizing they are already there. As I'm experiencing the outcome, I'm able to choose, given my understanding and my perception. I see that you are now a messenger. You are one who brings a message rather than one who seeks it. You are able now to articulate the entire cosmology. You have even worked into your last statement the truth about time. Yes, time as we understand it does not exist. There is only one moment, the eternal moment of now. All things that have ever happened are happening, and ever will happen are occurring right now. As you explained in Conversations with God, Book 3, it's like a giant CD-ROM. Every possible outcome has already been programmed. We experience the outcome we produce by the choices we make, like playing games with a computer. All of the computer's moves already exist. Which outcome you experience depends on which move you make. That is a very good example because it allows for quick understanding. It has one drawback, however, which is it likens life to a game. It makes it sound as if all I'm doing is playing with you. Yes, I've received letters from people who are angry about that. They've said that what was said in Conversations with God about events and time were true. They were deeply disappointed. If, after all is said and done, we're all nothing more than pawns being moved around on the chessboard of life by a God who does so for his own amusement, they were not very happy. Is that the kind of God you think I am? Because if you do, that's what you'll see me as. Humans have been having their thoughts about God and then seeing me as that for thousands of years. This, then, is the greatest secret of all about God. I will appear to you as you see me. Wow. Yes, wow, indeed. God will seem to be what you seem to see. So how do you see me? I see you as a God who empowers me to create whatever experience I choose and gives me the tools with which to do that. And one of the most powerful of those tools is your friendship with God. Trust me on this. I do. I trust you because I've learned that I don't have to. The process of life is what it is. Trust is not necessary, merely knowing. Exactly.
Now, does anybody want to talk about what Linda just read, or should we continue reading and then see if we can make time at the end? I'm open to either.
Yeah, I want to say a few things.
Go ahead.
It's really annoying. I'll tell you why. Because everything I've ever been taught about supplication, that's the main form of prayer that I've indulged in and that I've taught my children, went out the window.
Yep.
I mean, just shut up and want what you've got. End of story. And my whole house of cards collapsed And I was not happy because I'd been scotch taping that house of cards all my life. Over.
I'm just wondering, was there any sense of relief?
Yeah, that's what was even more annoying.
um,
I mean, this chapter was beyond annoying because I'm looking back at the junk heap. Like, okay, I'm on this island. They don't have a landfill, right? So every piece of garbage has to be sorted. And then what they do is they burn the Kleenex. I mean, where I come from, it's just in the trash or in the recycling, end of story. Here they even recycle the styrofoam. And I'm thinking, there's my whole life all in the bonfire. Like I've wasted 62 years. It's all burning up because it was wrong to begin with.
well, I know where you're coming from, because as I read the first Conversations with God book, who knows how long ago, I think I already knew in my heart what I didn't subscribe to in organized religion. And one would be, I had a really good friend who was a Baptist. And when her parents found out I was Catholic, she was forbidden to play with me because it was against their religion. And I thought, that doesn't sound like the God that I believe in, you know. Or that people that lived in uncivilized areas of the world would not get to heaven because they hadn't been baptized, when they didn't know what baptism was, or they didn't know the Bible. And so when I read through Conversations with God, book 1, I found myself saying over and over again, well, this is what I believe, what, Neil was, or God was saying to Neil. And it was such a relief to me that I could set that other stuff aside. And it doesn't mean it doesn't come up from time to time. It's like, which one's right? Or anyway, over. Anybody else?
I think it's,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Shabana.
Well, I was just going to say that your word uncivilized is sort of, the Catholic word for everyone who's not Catholic.
Oh, don't get me started.
I mean, truly, that's the definition of Catholic, is that there's us and then there's the whole world, They're uncivilized because they're not baptized, poor things. And that's essentially the definition of the monotheistic religions. I mean, I'm born Muslim, but my goodness, even the Buddhists are sure that they're right, or they wouldn't be killing the Muslims wherever they are, in where, you're the Rohingyas. So there's no one who's not othering, even if they're not monotheists. I mean, here in Canada, the big popular, everyone, either they're spiritual but not religious, or they're Buddhist, right? Like, but they're all othering, for sure.
I think it's a real challenge when we've lived our whole lives with a set of values and beliefs, and then we learn something that resonates. See, that's the key. If it doesn't resonate, then you just let it go and you keep being however you are. But if this stuff comes into your life and then you resonate with it, then you have to make a choice. What is what you want to believe? And it can be very disruptive to people and to families when people change. I mean, what do your kids think of you and these studies now that you're doing, Shabana? Does it create?
They've always been way ahead of me. They've been tolerating me.
So you're catching up to them.
Yeah, but I'm not happy, I mean, to put that house in the bonfire. I mean, I had to even take the Scotch tape off because you can't burn plastic. So this chapter really annoyed me.
Give yourself some compassion.
Well, all right.
I think too, one of the wonderful things that I did with my college education undergrad was I took world religions, and I had the best professor ever. I took so many classes from him, it was crazy. But one of the things he said is you have to remember that there's beauty in all traditions, and not all traditions of any one religion are going to necessarily appeal to 100% of who we are. And it actually threw me for a loop for a while, because I was like, wait a minute, I can kind of pick and choose. And anyway, I just think that's something we need to remember, is that there's bits and pieces of religion that are not resonant with us, which Linda brings up. Then there's other parts which are. And I just choose to not focus on those ones that don't resonate with me. Over.
Can I say something?
Please do.
Yeah, because this has been very interesting for me since I started to study spirituality and religion, comparative religion and philosophy and all this. The separation that, as you said, Shabana, the otherness, the separation was always something that disturbed me. And I saw a statement somewhere, I don't remember who said it, but for me that was really good. It says, religion, no matter what kind of religion, on the surface is separating, but in the depths it's uniting. And that's how I look at it. If we go deeper too, we can see, and I mean, even Jesus said, see yourself in your neighbor, or treat your neighbor as yourself, and God lives in everyone's heart, or whatever. There are always ways to look at, in the depths, it's uniting. And that separation is dangerous, and that makes planet Earth a dangerous place. And even how we look at women and what has happened. Every religion, there is no one that has been completely peaceful. Maybe the further than we have knowledge about, but indigenous or something like that. But for me, I love the core of the spirituality, and all religions have something to give in that core. And for me, there is no separation. That's why I wrote this unconditional oneness scripture. You haven't seen that. It just came to me. Unconditional oneness is fundamental for unconditional love to exist. That is the message that came to me in summer. Yeah. Okay.
Hi, this is Anne. Well, I just have a quick comment, which is all religions, the base of all religion is about love.
Yeah.
That's the core theme of every religion.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Well, I'm just really angry about giving up my neurosis. because I was making busy work by taping together the cards in my house of cards, you know, like it was a project. I'd get up every morning and put more Scotch tape to make sure that, you know, it was more or less standing. And now what I'm finding is that my meditation is to sit in peace, no neurosis. You know, like essentially my meditation was just thinking now, how much tape do I need on these particular cards? Because they weren't responding to Scotch tape very well. And now I have to sit in peace, you know, like, and that might lead to world peace because I don't need to trust God. I just need to sit there and think, yeah, the house of cards is in the bonfire and there's peace in my heart and I don't have any more busy work to do. And my goodness, is my peace going to bring world peace? And there aren't any houses of cards, so I'm lonely and I'm happy and it's very uncomfortable.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, you've given us some things to think about, Shabana, that's for sure.
Thank you for letting, like, that's the bottom line, is that I'm just mad about not being neurotic and crazy and restless anymore.
What can we do for you? What can we do for you?
What did you say?
What can we do for you?
You've done it, just to listen to it, because that really truly is the truth, and I'm not about to go announce it to anyone. But I did tell all of you, because we read it in the book, and it blew my mind literally. Like now I'm operating from the heart. Mainly because I have no choice, you know? The truth is just too compelling, and I appreciate your offer. Thank you, Kirsten.
Well, our arms are wrapped around you with care and love. We love you, so we can just send love to you.
You're so kind. Yes, that's taking away the sadness and the loneliness and the anger, because I was addicted to my neurosis. Thank you.
I was that way once. I'm not saying that you were. I mean, I can relate to that, is all I'm saying.
I mean, thank you very much indeed. That's exactly what I needed, is for you to tell me that all of you are putting your arms around me, because this is a very difficult, thank you. It's a difficult confession.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I second, we all love you.
Yes, Shabana. She
And
knows
my doors are
you know you're loved.
I'll be right back.
Thank you.
And Linda, you can go ahead and start again if you want.
Okay. Okay. And before we do, I wanted to I'll just expand on what Anne was saying. I did this as an exercise when I was a young teenager, like 12, 13, around there. I had kind of gotten fed up with religion. And I wanted to get to the bottom of what the truth was. And so I did an exercise where I started with a major religion and I would follow it all the way to its inception. And then I moved to the next religion and I did the same thing. And if you ever do that exercise, what you discover is that every single major religion that's out there, they all start based on the same 4-letter word, love. And how they've gotten so twisted is through separation and ego. Individual human ego, is my belief, is what's really altered and tainted the truth that rests at the inception of each of the religions. Okay, that's my 2 cents. All right, let's move on. Chapter 7, This is Neil speaking. It hasn't always been like this with me. I mean, I didn't always have to have things so exhaustively explained to me before I could trust. In fact, when I was younger, I always trusted that everything would go right. I was a person of unbridled optimism. One might even call it reckless optimism. Given the fact that I'd grown up being afraid of God, this state of mind might seem to have been doubly reckless. Still, that's the way it was with me. As a child, I always knew I was going to get what I wanted, and I always did. Usually, I might add, without much effort. This really bothered my brother, who used to complain loudly that Neil has all the luck. Once I overheard my dad responding to this complaint. Neil, he said, makes his own luck. He was right, and part of the reason was my parents. My mother imbued me with a love of life and all things creative, and my father blessed me with self-confidence. No matter what the challenge, he'd ask me over and over again, how are you going to do it if you don't try? He also told me something when I was about 15 years old that I've always remembered. Son, he said, there's no right way to do something. There's only the way you're doing it. Make your way the right way. How do I do that? I asked, and he answered, by getting it done. 35 years later, the Nike company put this neat little philosophy into a 3-word slogan, just do it. As I said earlier, as a freshman in high school, I jumped right into things. All those extracurricular activities kept me wildly busy, and I did well in the classes I liked: English, speech, political science, music, foreign languages. I have to admit that I barely squeaked by in the subjects that bored me: biology, algebra, geometry. But the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee accepted my enrollment anyway, on probation. I didn't last very long. The dean of men asked me to give up my chair after 3 semesters, but I wasn't too upset. I was impatient with life, and I just wanted to get into radio right then, right there. After I flunked out of college, my father said to me, okay, son, you're on your own. I did what I could for you, but you want to do it your way. Part of me was scared out of my mind, and part of me was so excited I couldn't stand it. I'd already been logging for some airtime, working gratis for a tiny FM station that had just gone on the air. And when Dad cut me loose, I marched into the general manager's office at another FM station a little further up the dial and boldly told him that he should hire me. Larry LaRue threw his head back and cackled. Why should I do that? I didn't miss a beat. Because I'm better than anyone you've got on the air. Larry stopped laughing, but the smile never left his face. Kid, I like you, he said. You've got chutzpah. I didn't know what that word meant. I remember thinking, this is good? Tell you what, he squeaked toward me in his swivel chair. You come back here at 8 o'clock tonight and I'll give you the Nightman show. I'll have the Nightman show you the ropes. At 9 o'clock, you go on. I'll be listening. If I don't call you by 9:30, get out of there and don't ever let me see you again. His grin became mischievous. Fair enough, I chirped, reaching out to shake his hand, and then I added, be hearing from you tonight. I walked out and nearly lost my lunch in the parking lot. I was still sick to my stomach when I took the mic that night. I gave a tentative station break and rolled right into music. A couple of songs later, it was 9:28. There was no call, and I was pretty dejected as I prepared to let the regular night guy take over. He poked his head in the room just as I was gathering my things. The boss is back on the line, he said, and left. I picked up the phone. You're hired, Larry grunted. Stay on till 11. Be in my office tomorrow at 9. I've never forgotten Larry LaRue for giving me that break. A different kind of person might have thrown me out of the place. Years later, when I was a program director at a radio station in Baltimore, I did my best to pass on the favor, using what I had come to call La Rule LaRue, always give the kid a chance. I had plenty of kids wanting to break into the business knocking on my door. I couldn't just stick them into the studio or put them on the air the way Larry did. We were too important a station and too big a market to get away with that. But I always invited them into my office, and I gave them their audition tape a fair listen. I gave them tips, too, on what I thought they needed to do to improve. I never hired any one of them on the spot, though. I guess those days were over in radio. They certainly are today. There's no place where you can earn your spurs anymore. Today, you've got to hit the ground running in any profession. My generation may have been the last to be able to sneak through the side door. And that's too bad. We need more places where kids can serve their apprenticeships. The pressure to succeed that is placed on today's 20 and 25-year-olds is enormous. To make matters worse, many are now more ill-equipped than ever, which is something I'd like to talk about. The education I've received in South Division High School in Milwaukee was equal to what a community college graduate would receive today if he was lucky. You must improve your education systems, reigniting the spirit of inquiry and the joy of learning in your schools. I gave you some wonderful clues on how you might do that in Conversations with God Book 2. I will not repeat them here. Rather, I invite you to review them and put them into practice. Put them into practice. Life is a process of recreation. You are invited to empower the world to recreate the experience of school in the next grandest version of the greatest vision you ever held about what that is. Recreating school is not all we need to do. We need to make it clear that we're never going to ignite the thinking process and encourage independent inquiry if we allow our children to spend 20 hours a week watching television and then 20 hours a week glued to video games. Children will not learn much that way. On the contrary, they will learn a great deal. They will learn how to seek instant gratification and how to expect all life problems to resolve themselves in 28 and a half minutes, and how to vent their frustrations over problems that don't instantly resolve themselves by using violence. Well, the entertainment industry executives deny that TV, movie, and video games images, however violent, are responsible for young people's violent behavior. Are these the same executives who sell Super Bowl commercials for $500,000 apiece, claiming that they can influence behaviors in 60 seconds? Well, yes, I see. But surely it can't be simply video games that are desensitizing kids to death and violence. Kids know it's just a game. Do you know that some police and military academies use what they use to teach professionals quick eye-hand coordination and to shoot to kill without emotion? Video games? I only asked a question. I'll leave you to discover the answer. But could you think of a faster, more effective teaching tool? Oh man, I probably shouldn't have put all this in here. Why not? People don't want social commentary from me, and they certainly don't want it from you. This is a book about God, and God isn't supposed to have opinions on social issues of the day. You mean real life? I mean political and social issues. You're supposed to stick to spiritual matters, and so am I. Is there any matter more spiritual than how you stop your children from killing each other? Do we need many more Columbine high schools to get you to understand that you've got a real problem here? We know we have a problem. We just don't know how we solve it. You do know how to solve it. You simply have not gathered the will to do so. First, spend some time with your children. Stop acting as if they're on their own from age 11. Get involved. Stay involved in their lives. Talk to their teachers. Make friends with their friends. Exert an influence. Have a real presence in their lives. Don't let them slip away from you. Second, take an active stand against violence and the role models of violence in their lives. Images do teach. Indeed, imagery teaches faster and imprints deeper than words. Insist that those in charge of retelling your cultural story, movie makers, TV producers, video game manufacturers, and other purveyors of imagery, from comic books to trading cards, create a new cultural story with a new ethic, an ethic of nonviolence. Third, do what it takes to make sure that the instruments of violence and the tools of violence are unavailable to your children and your teenagers. Prevent easy access and effortless acquisition. Most important, eliminate violence from your life. You are the greatest model for your children. If they see you using violence, they will use violence. Does that mean we shouldn't spank our children? Can't you think of no other way to teach those that you say you deeply love? Is startling them, scaring them, or hurting them the only way you can think of to instruct them? Yours is a culture that has long used physical pain as a punishment for unwanted behavior, not only in children, but in adults. You actually kill people to get people to stop killing people. It is insanity to use the energy that created a problem to seek to solve the problem. It's insanity to repeat the behaviors you want to stop in order to stop them. It's insanity to model behaviors all over your society that you say you do not want your offspring to copy. And the highest insanity is pretending that none of this is happening, then wondering why your children are acting insane. Are you saying we're all insane? Well, I'm defining insanity. It's up to you to decide who and what you are. You are deciding that every day. Every act is an act of self-definition. You've been using some pretty tough words here. That's what friends are for. You want to know what it's like having a friendship with God? This is what it's like. Friends tell the truth. Friends tell you the truth. Friends say it like it is. Friends don't pander to you or tell you only what they think you want to hear. Yet friends don't tell you what is so and then leave you to deal with it. Friends are always there for you, offering constant support, a helping presence, and unconditional love. That's what God does. That's what this ongoing dialogue is all about. How long will this dialogue be going on? I thought it would be over at the end of the CWG trilogy. It will go on for as long as you choose for it to go on. So, will there be another book after this? There will definitely be another book after this, as I indicated to you years ago, but it will not be a dialogue book. It won't? No. What kind of a book will it be? A book that speaks with one voice. Your voice? Our voice. Our voice. Your conversation with God has led you to your friendship with God, and your friendship with God will lead you to your communion with God. We will speak with one voice in communion with God, and it will be an extraordinary document. All of the With God books have been extraordinary, indeed. Will there be any more dialogue books where you and I just talk? If you wish for there to be, there will be. Well, I enjoy these conversations immensely because they really make me think. I'm sometimes surprised, though, at how opinionated you are. For a God with no preferences, you seem to express quite a few. Giving directions is not the same as stating preferences. If you say you wish to go to Seattle and you are on the road to San Jose, and if you stop and ask directions, is it an announcing a preference to tell you that you are on the wrong road, that you've made a wrong turn? Is it being opinionated to tell you how you get where you say you want to go? You've used this analogy before. You've said this to me before. And I will say it to you over and over again as long as you keep trying to make me into a God who needs something from you. I tell you this, I need nothing from you. Do you imagine me to be such an impotent God that I would need something from you and not be able to get it? Do you think that there is something that I want to have happen, but that I just don't know how to make it happen? If I needed you to go to Seattle, do you think I'd be wholly unable to get you to do that? It's not like that. It's like this. You tell me where you seek to go, and I tell you how to get there. Humans have been telling God for thousands of years what kind of life they'd like to have. You've declared to me and to each other that you wish to live long lives of peace, harmony, health, and abundance. I, in turn, have been telling you for thousands of years how you could do that. I'm telling you here once again. Therefore, let those who have ears to hear listen. Yes, but as I said, sometimes people don't want to hear that. Some people have not liked the parts of our dialogue when you've gotten political or controversial on social issues. And it isn't just God they don't want to hear from. I've learned that when I was in the media, I had to tone down a lot of my opinions when I got on the radio. Larry LaRue was the first of many bosses to tell me that. I worked for Larry for about 8 months, and then I got another break, though today I wouldn't call such an event a break, because today I know that there is no such thing as luck, and that life proceeds out of your intentions for it. That's good. That is important. It's vital if you're going to have a friendship with God, a real working friendship, for you to understand how God works. People are forever calling the good outcomes in life breaks or luck or coincidence or serendipity or fate or whatever. And the bad outcomes, the hurricanes, the tornadoes, earthquakes, sudden deaths, they call acts of God. No wonder you had this idea that you had to be afraid of me. Your whole culture supports that idea. It's reflected in everything you say and how you say it. It's everywhere in your language. Now, I will tell you, what you call the good things that happen to you are also acts of God. No two people meet by chance, and nothing occurs by accident. Hang on a second, I have to clear my throat. Do you imagine that Larry was sitting there, just the right person, at just the right time, with just the right attitude, by a stroke of luck? Consider the possibility that you and Larry did not meet by chance at that time on that date, but that, like a supporting player, standing in the wings waiting for his cue, he marched on stage, said his lines, and made his exit. And the play, your play, went on just as it always goes on, just as it is going on right now, with you writing the script through your every thought about tomorrow, with you directing the scenes with your every verbal command, with you acting them out with your every deed. That's awesome. That could be a great depiction of how it really is. Could be. Like I said, that's a great depiction of how it really is. And now, of course, I know that. After my conversation with God, all of this became clear. But then I thought it was just another break when one of our better than on-air talents, a fellow named Johnny Walker, left the station 2 months after I arrived to take a job in Richmond, Virginia. Soon after that, Johnny bosses in Richmond left to join a company that had purchased a small AM outlet in Annapolis, Maryland. Johnny Walker didn't want to leave Richmond, but said he knew of a new young talent that Dean could use to help give the Annapolis station a new image and a good sound. That new young talent was me. Within the blink of an eye, I was off to the East Coast, my mother wringing her hands, asking Dad to stop me. My father said, let the boy go, it's his time. But what if this is all a mistake, Mom asked. Then it'll be a mistake, Father said simply. He knows where we are. I arrived in Annapolis in August of 1963, with 1 month left in my 19th year. My starting salary was $50 a week, but hey, I was on real radio. This was not FM, this was AM, the kind of radio they had in cars, the kind they took on little portables to the beaches. And by my 21st birthday, I had become a program manager of the station, in charge of making all its commercials. I'm telling you these stories, and this one in particular, because I want you to see how God works in our lives, how we do have a friendship with God and don't even know it. I want to illustrate how God uses people, place, events to help us on our way, or rather, how he allows us to, giving us the creative power to determine the reality of our lives, although I wouldn't have put it that way then. By 1966, I'd worked my way into the production manager's radio job at a radio station in the city in the Deep South, which I'm not going to name because I don't wish to embarrass or anger present residents. Things are different there now, I'm sure, but in 1966, I thought it was a mistake for me to go there. There are no mistakes in God's world. It was not a concept I had learned yet. I only see now that what happened was all a part of my education, a preparation for the larger work I was to do in the world. What made me think it was a big mistake for me to be in a southern city was the radical attitude that I found there. In the mid-60s, and the Civil Rights Act had just been signed by President Johnson, it had become law because it was needed, just as anti-hate legislation is needed today. And nowhere was that need more apparent than in some bastions of long-standing racial prejudice in certain corners of the Deep South. I was in just such a corner in more ways than one. I wanted out. I hated it. When I first drove into town, I needed some gas, and pulling into the service station, I was shocked at a cardboard sign stuck to the gas pump that read whites only. Coloreds got their gas at the pump round back. Restaurants, bars, hotels, theaters, the bus station, and other public places were similarly segregated. Now, being from Milwaukee, I had never seen such things. Not that Milwaukee or any other northern city was free of racial prejudice, but I'd never seen it confronted with such blatant designation of a whole group of people as a second-class citizens. I've never lived in a place where the whole society agreed that it was okay to do that. Things went from bad to worse. I'd been invited to dinner at the home of some of the new acquaintances, and I made the mistake of asking about the racial attitudes I was encountering all over the place. I thought my hosts, a genteel couple of obvious breeding, might be able to offer me some insight. I got some insight, but not the kind I'd expected. Bristling as he held up his wine glass to be refilled by an elderly black servant named Thomas, my host drawled through a strained smile. Well, now, my new friend, I hope y'all won't judge us too harshly. You see, we feel really kindly towards our coloreds here. Yes, sir, we do. Why, we treat them as regular members of the family. He turned to Thomas. Now, ain't that right, boy? I winced. The man didn't even know what he was doing. Thomas, however, was not so unaware. He whispered, "That's a fact, Captain, that's a fact," quietly left the room. Now, these days, when I see blatant injustice, my first impulse is not to walk away from it, but to move toward it and to try to understand what sponsors it, to see if I can do anything to help heal it. But those were younger days when my heart was just deciding about its truth, not acting on it. And so I simply wanted out. In the worst way, I had no tolerance for intolerance. I understood nothing about that level of prejudice. I understood nothing about what today we would call the Black experience, and I just wanted to get away from the whole thing. I cried out to God, "Get me out of here." I couldn't imagine how I was going to actually leave. Very quickly, though. Broadcasting is a very specialized field, and jobs in the market of one's choice are not easy to find. I felt I was lucky to be working anywhere. Of course, I hadn't counted on God's friendship. In those days, I still thought of God as someone who would answer prayers sometimes, ignore prayers other times, and punish me severely for all time if I died with sins on my soul. These days, I know that God answers prayers all the time. And I also know that everything we seek, say, and do is a prayer and produces a response from God. That's what a good friend is. Good friend he is. But in the 60s, I didn't understand that. So I wasn't exactly experiencing a miracle here. Imagine my surprise when I got one. It was a phone call out of the blue from a complete stranger. A man identifying himself as Tom Feldman called me. "You don't know me, but I got your name from Marvin Mervis, the owner of the station I worked for in Annapolis. I'm looking for a program director for our radio station in Baltimore. Marvin says you're a talented guy. Would you be interested in coming up for an interview?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you kidding?" I shouted inside my head. "Yes, I think I can arrange that," I said to Tom Feldman. "There's one thing you should know, though," he continued. "It's an all-Black radio station." Ah, yes, I remember that. That was clever of me, wasn't it? Clever. It was downright conniving. Because when I was hired, surprise, surprise, at WEBB in Baltimore, I got to find out firsthand what prejudice was about and how Blacks experienced it, even in a so-called sophisticated, larger city. I learned a lot, too, about my own self-righteousness and about how I thought we were somehow better in our big city attitudes than the rural folks in the Deep South. I found out that our radical attitudes were not much better at all, but I had to be deeply embedded in the Black experience to be able to see that. Outside the Deep South, our prejudices were simply expressed differently, mainly with much more hypocrisy. I let go of a lot of my false and arrogant thoughts during my tenure at what was known in those days as Rhythm and Blues Station. And I actually learned a lot firsthand about Black culture, working side by side with a Black staff and interacting daily with Black community brought me insights I could not have gained in another way. When I'd learned what I'd come to the station to learn, God stepped in again, giving me yet another incredible chance to prepare further for the work that I was eventually to do in the world. Hold it. You realize, of course, that it was you doing this, not me. You do understand, don't you, that I have no agenda for you other than the agenda you set for yourself. Yes, I know that now, but when I was still living in a paradigm which suggested that there was something God wanted me to do and that suggested God controls and causes the circumstances and events of my life. Well, now, just for review, who does control and cause the circumstances of your life? I do. And how do you do that? With everything that I think, say, and do. Good. That needed clarifying there. Otherwise, some could get the impression that I was the cause of your experience. Yet you did just chuckle now at how clear it was of you, how clever it was of you to place me in that all-black radio station. It was clever how I facilitated what you choose to call forth. This is how our friendship, your friendship with God works. First, you decide what it is you choose, and then I make it possible. I decided that I wanted to work in an all-black radio station? No, you decided that you wanted to understand more fully what radical prejudice and righteousness was all about. You decided this at a very high level, at the soul level. It was about giving you your self lessons. It was about bringing you your self reminders. It was about moving yourself towards awareness. Your subconscious thought was to flee, to get out of there. Your superconscious thought was to find out more at the conscious level, at the radical attitudes and about the intolerance, including your own. You obeyed all of these impulses at once. And you, as my soul's friend, will always make it possible for me to do that? Yes, I will place the tools in your hands with which you may fashion the experience of your choosing, that you might come higher and higher levels of consciousness, that you may choose to use these tools or not use them. What would cause me to do one or the other? How aware you are about why that which is occurring in your life right now is occurring. Later, I will talk to you about levels of awareness and levels within levels. It seems that I always have a lot more conscious. I am always a lot more conscious about these things after they've happened than while they are happening. I see now clearly why what happened in my life next. Hang on a second. I see now clearly why what happened next in my life occurred, but at the time I was cursing you. That is not uncommon. I know, but now I feel bad about it because I see two things that I couldn't see then. First, I see that what happened was something I called forth. And second, I see that it was for my own highest good. Given where you say you wanted to go in your experience. Yes, given where I say I wanted to go. I now see that I've always been choosing to be a teacher and a raiser of consciousness among people, and that my whole life has been a preparation for that. That is very true. Okay, I feel, folks, like I should stop because we've got like a minute left, and this chapter goes on and on and on.
Yep. I agree with you. This has been a great chapter, I think. And it'll just continue to be great. And next week, because according to my Kindle, there's 30 more minutes of reading. We'll stop at that 30 minutes and discuss
in the
everything.
next
Yeah.
And I should be able to read next week. I'm flying to Pennsylvania for a funeral on Saturday, but
Okay.
I should be able to read no problem. So I plan on being here.
Okay. Sorry, you got to go to a funeral.
I know.
All right, everybody. Love you all. More next time.
No meditation? No oneness moment?
Shabana, do you want to do a real quick?
Yeah, real quick. Okay. Thank you for showing us that we're stuck with peace and truth. Help us to be grateful for it. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you all next week, and we'll try to remember to get that meditation in sooner next time.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Love you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Love you all.
Thank you,
Blessing.
Kirsten.
Bye.
Thank you, Giovanna. Bye, Nanette.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.